Hello, this is Jon Speelman. I know it's the colour, the representation of me isn't great. With my latest monthly column, it's supposed to come out on the 3rd of May, but I was at the 4NCL and so I'm a bit late. And also, it's not quite as long as normal. I've had a bit of trouble with my machine. My computer, my desktop is now making grinding noises a little bit, so I may have to take it to the vet, or rather to a shop, probably just have a new fan, which won't be a terrible thing. Anyway, so following Javokhir Sindarov's victory in the candidates, I thought I really ought to do something about him. I haven't done a huge amount, but I've done something, and I'm starting actually the column. Let's get over here. I've called it Scholars and Gentlemen, and it's not a great title, but it'll do. Scholars, does it say gentlemen? It does say men. I'm half blind. And I started with when I learnt chess in 1962. It was Boxing Day, which is December 26th. My cousin taught me. And of course he played Scholar's Mate against me, which is Queen takes f7. Everybody does against somebody who's learnt the game. And I think, though it's possibly a false memory, he started with Queen f3 takes f7, showed me you could stick something in the way to stop the mate, and then wickedly switched to Queen h5 takes f7. Anyway, I didn't give up chess immediately. I got my mum to buy me Chess for Children, which was by Raymond Bott and Stanley Morrison. Or is it Stanley Bott and... no, Raymond Bott and Stanley Morrison. Two school teachers. Excellent book, actually. And I believe I was 6 at the time, I learnt to read properly because it turned out to be useful at that stage. Later I got The Chess Apprentice, which was their sequel. But my first proper chess book, which is really where we're coming in, was the Bob Wade's account of the 1963 match between Mikhail Botvinnik and Tigran Petrosian in Moscow. So obviously I was a sprog at this point and it didn't mean that much to me, but since then I've enjoyed it many, many times. Excuse me. It's a really lovely book. And what happened was Botvinnik won the first game. Petrosian was really like a rabbit in headlights. He played terribly, maybe at 2,000 strength or something. And remember, he was going to be world champion at the end of this match. And then he lost, but he equalised in game 5, which is a very famous game where he adjourned with his king on g7, his white king on g7, with rook and knight against rook and bishop, slaughtering Botvinnik. And then he won the match. And the most important thing of all, actually, was that because there were Armenians in the Kremlin at that point, I don't know who was there exactly, they'd rescinded Botvinnik's right to a return match, because he always used to lose a match, then have a return match. But he didn't get it, and so Petrosian stayed champion. Botvinnik didn't try to get to the title again. Petrosian beat Spassky, I think, in 66, lost to Spassky in 69, and Spassky lost to Fischer in Reykjavik 72. Anyway, the thing is, I looked up the match. I couldn't remember when it was in the year, of course. I didn't look in the book, actually. I just used a chess-based database, and there it was in the spring, which means that Botvinnik was 51, he was born in 1911, and Petrosian, who was born sometime June, I think, 29, was 33. And the thing is that when Gukesh and Sindarov play at the end of this year, Gukesh will be 20, and Sindarov will either be 20 or 21. I believe his birthday is December the 8th. So their combined age is at least a decade short of Botvinnik's when he defended his title, and their combined age is well under a half of Botvinnik plus Petrosian. Anyway, so I'm coming on to Sindarov, and I said that I was very impressed. Well, before the candidates, I thought he wouldn't be experienced enough to do it, but actually he proved to have a wonderful team and very good orientation, very good nerves as well. I'm not sure if I said that here, actually. But also, the feeling for what was going on, when to push and when not. But actually, for all the fact that he won 6 games, the game that impressed me most of all was when he defended himself as black against Caruana in round whatever it was. It must have been 11, I suppose. It went Caruana, Nakamura, Giri, and then in the last round he played Wei-E, I believe. That's right, I think, isn't it? So I'm going to go to the game in my database. I've just got the 2 games today. I've got this game and then a little morsel afterwards. So Caruana's got to find a way to beat Sindarov, who's playing very well, but, you know, he's white, he's Caruana, he's had a long time to prepare. What does he do? He chooses a Catalan, and then he does one of the sidelines. So, let's do it. I'm going to find it slightly hard to see it, actually, I'm afraid. But there we are. Okay, the move ordery things going on. Nakamura played d4, actually. Sindarov just plays his moves. And he takes, which is the most forcing move, really, the open variation. White normally goes, well, Queen c2, a6, a4 is the most common line of all. Queen c2, there is b5, which is very sharp. Nakamura's played, all sorts of people have played it. It's supposed to be a playable line, I think it is. Very complicated. Sindarov could have done enormous amounts of work on it, obviously. And there is knight a3 as well, I think, or even knight e2, but he played knight e5. There is the move now, queen d6, knight a3, queen a6, or do you go rook d8 first? I'm not sure. I think you go knight ac, queen a6, knight ac4, rook d8 or something, and that's very complicated, but also very dubious. I think that's right. I should just check, actually, about queen to here. I believe, just in case I've got it wrong, I'll put it on an engine in a minute. Yeah, nice. Oh, it's knight takes c4, the most common move. And they will normally get... Yeah, this is a line, knight a takes c4. And this is a line. Okay. But it's a bit dubious. Or you can... so he plays knight c6, which is the main line, is what you're supposed to do. And then now queen a4 is a move, queen c2 is a move, and black can play either e5 or c5. I sort of prefer c5 because although you're a pawn down, you keep your pawn structure. With e5 you're left, you don't lose a pawn, but you do have a manky pawn structure in the long term if white can get developed. Anyway, he goes bishop e3. Not a particularly normal move. Defending the pawn and stopping either of those for the moment, I think, probably. Knight d5, queen c1. Obviously this was repaired. Rook b8. Knight c3. And here, actually, I would like to play bishop b7. I think what he did, knight takes e3, it does win a pawn for the moment, but it leaves him with a truly manky pawn structure. I don't know if you know the English word manky. It means sort of foul and icky. But bishop b7, also bishop d7 is a move. But bishop b7 is quite a good move. b3 is possible. And black is very active. They go rook c1, they go h5. And it's hard for white to get organised. Very difficult to try to get in e4. And actually this is quite a pleasant position to play, I think. I don't know if you could have gone rook e1 rather than... maybe we could try to go rook e1 rather than... Can you go here, maybe? What does black do then? I'm going to ask its Sublime Majesty, actually. It thinks this is fine. Of course, there's a bat rank, isn't there? There is a bat rank, maybe. So what do you do here? It doesn't care. It goes h5. I was trying to play this move now to play e4. But you've got rook a2. And if e4, you can double rooks, probably. There you go, bishop b7. And he just doesn't care, really. Black's got enough pressure with his pieces that it's okay. apparently. If you start playing f3, then the rooks are really strong. Okay, so this is all right. I'm going to go Control S, actually, to save it. So that would have been knight e3. I don't like, because although he wins a pawn, problem is you can't go rook b6 because of knight d5. I mean, you wonder, can you play an exchange sacrifice here? But it's not terribly impressive. White's a bit better, presumably. I mean, the engine says most of the pawn. So he forces the exchange. By the way, at the top I had a line, which is another line of the Catalan, to show you, which they sometimes play, which goes something like this. Yeah, if you go a3 now, then b5 is a move. The main line nowadays tends to go like this, and again black wins a pawn, but white does order pawn this way, but white again has a manky pawn structure. This is not that dissimilar. It's maybe a slightly better it probably is a better version for white. So on they go, and although black is a safe-ish pawn up, it's not at all pleasant. This was a good move. I was thinking he was going to play queen f2, but of course he goes here to protect his queen, get his king in that, and now Sindarov tried this. You can see he's trying to make things happen, make Caruana shoot his bolt. But this is a fine move, actually. And although black is a pawn up at the moment, definitely white's got the initiative. But there is a good move here, actually. Rook c8 is good, in fact. Take here. h6. And if queen b8, you have this move. Now, this is not something even Sindarov is going to see, I don't think. It's pretty surprising. Because the thing is, you've driven the king one square further away from the pawn. So now if you go knight d6, c3, knight takes, king h8 to keep, so not king h7 there, I think it's also possible. Queen there, here, check, here, check. And black, although white gets some checks, the c-pawn is so strong that it's absolutely fine, I believe. I'm wondering why you can't go... Oh, if you go check and queen g8, can't you go check, here, check, here, which seems to threaten mate, but then of course queen e2 check is at least the draw. Yeah, there's queen e2 check at the end. And that is, in fact, winning, apparently, though that's not... It's at least the draw is the important thing. So that would have been a clever but very difficult way to equalise. And he went e5, queen to there, bishop e6, takes knight c3, of course you keep the knight. And here he went f6, rook to there. And the engine just wants to go bishop c8, actually, and doesn't see any big problem. Well, it doesn't like it very much. But he went here, of course, being a person. And now white's got an a-pawn. And one thing I should point out is that if black could now play the move rook f8 takes c3, then the move king f2 to d2 would win outright. And that's quite important. It means that it's difficult to attack the knight. And this is absolutely foul for black. I know it's, you know, equal material, black's got a bishop against a knight, but that a-pawn in the long term is a real problem. He made some moves. And now he went here to annoy him. I think rook b6 is the best move. He played so well, Sindarov, to stay in the game, I thought, in g4. g4 is possibly not the right move. He can play king d2 as well. And he went here to attack the centre. The king side takes, king to there, of course, you mustn't. Now rook g7. Don't know, is that threatening to go rook b2 check? The guy went here. And now Sindarov did that. And that's really not an easy thing to do, because you might be losing the bishop v knight ending. But he did it quite quickly because he understood he had to do it. There are moves you have to play even if they lose. Doesn't matter. Sometimes maybe they're not even the best move. For instance, the weekend I had a position, I nicked a pawn. And I knew it might be losing, and in fact it was. But it put pressure on my opponent because it meant that I actually had something to play for. And here, if you go rook takes rook, actually it's okay. Take here, here, here. You must go bishop c8. Knight here, king here, knight here, bishop here. If knight here, you go here, takes here, and you have that move, which is most important. And that gives black enough play. Okay, it's not, and that would draw. If you move the e-pawn, then black's getting too active. Basically. Okay, so yeah. And now I mean white makes a draw easily, of course. So he went back and pushed his pawn. Rook to there to stop it advancing further. King starts to move round, takes here. He went rook b7 first. He could easily have gone king g5 first as well. Actually, they're both all right. And here, my first thought was king b4, king f4, a5, but that actually loses to rook takes knight check and bishop e8. And the thing is, black's king is coming very quickly towards the action. And you can't advance the pawns because then the bishop suddenly has a square to go to f3. So he comes here to protect his knight. King, pawn, rook. Obviously must get in front behind the pawn. Check here. Bishop e8. And now if rook a8 looks like it might be dangerous, but in fact then there is bishop takes knight, pawn equals queen, takes, and this excellent move. And if you take you've got to take the bishop, really. And this is a drawn pawn ending, which obviously is not that easy to verify, but it happens to be true. Okay, so he went rook c7. I thought he'd play bishop takes knight here, but it's better he didn't. The thing is, this position, yeah, if you play king takes pawn, then king b3 actually wins. Because the problem is you can't hide from a check and then another check and then the rook to the a file. Most unpleasant. So king f3, say you go rook c3 check, rook to either c2 or c4, and rook to a2 or a4. So you have to try rook a7 or something and you lose. You can also go back, I think, maybe to king f1 or something, but then king b2 and you still get the rook to the a file. So it was better not to do this. He went check, keeping some of the action going here. And he just went f5. Rook takes bishop take, and now these pawns are enough to win the h-pawn very easily. So it continued, and I liked it that Caruana now thought, I'm not going to play with a rook and a knight. I think he may possibly have noticed that Sindarov didn't try to play with rook against bishop against Geary in the first half. Anyway, he made a draw. Check to stop the pawn. Good idea to stop it, otherwise you'd lose, and he agreed to draw. So, very, very fine defence, and I really think many of the world's top players would have lost that ending as black against Caruana, or indeed say black against Carlsen. They just wouldn't have been able to hold it. So the only other little thing I've got for you now is I'm going to show you just a little bon mouche, really. Bon bouche or bambouche? Sorry, not a good fly, good mouth. So this is just something Sindarov's been playing in Warsaw earlier in the week. It's now Thursday as I do this, Thursday, whenever was polling day in England, I think the 7th. Is it the 7th today? I think so. And Sindarov got 4 out of 11, or as they call it, 8 out of 22 in the rapid play. But okay, but he did have one nice trick he played, one nice finish. So this is against Wojtaszek. The game itself is not that particularly interesting, it's just the finish. Must be about equal at the moment. I think the engine wants to go b3 here just to hold things. But actually this is perfectly okay. He's trying to win all the time, which is probably why he's in danger of getting worse, I think. And now he's starting to get some play, actually. He gets in this a5, a4 thing, and if you take, you're going to be able to attack the pawns, aren't you? You don't want that. By the way, was rook d6 possible here? No, because of takes. If rook d6, rook takes, queen takes, pawn takes, pawn, resign. No, pawn takes, pawn. Actually, you have queen a6 there. And how is that? So I'm just looking at this. Is this possible? I wonder. I'm thinking. I hadn't looked at it before. So if rook d6, rook d6, rook d6, queen d6, queen d6, pawn takes pawn, queen a6, pawn equals queen, queen takes rook, and does black have a good move? Well, black is at least equal if you just go queen d1 and bishop d4. Black is better actually, isn't he? Here, bishop f2, I see. Yeah, if you go king f2, I think bishop d4 might be winning. So, yeah, queen takes, or bishop d4 is equal. Or you could just go queen c3 here as well. If you want to draw, you can just do this here. Take. Yeah, take. Oh no, you got that. That's annoying, isn't it? How annoying. So you can't go queen. Can you do that? No, you can't go queen c3. Sorry. Let's delete that variation. Delete variation. So what should you do? Queen d1 it will do, I suppose, and queen e2. Okay, so that was a line, but what actually happened was he didn't do that. And he manages to defend himself, and they play some chess. Don't know if he could have taken an h5 at some... This is an annoying move now. Now Sindarov is taken over completely. Presumably at this point it's starting to be unpleasant. Suddenly, yeah, rook a1 was a threat. It's all falling apart, really. I don't know, maybe for a move it's still defensible, but this bishop is foul. Here, it's such an unpleasant position. That's a good move, I think. So this is the diagram I had. So the question is, what should black do now? What is black's best way to do things? And he found a very, very nice, clean way to kill the man, really. He played e5, closing the diagonal. The reason he closed the diagonal is, well, the guy went c5. I suppose he could try this, but it would not be good. I think if you went here, now maybe it's not the end of the world, or is it the end of the world? How do you do this? You go rook 7 to a3, oh my god. That is a foul move, isn't it? End of the world. I didn't see that. I was looking at rook d8 or something and rook d2 and thinking, well, this is very bad, but maybe you can still fight a bit. But after this, the threat of rook f3 check is devastating. For just the end of the game. Okay, but the thing is that after c5, he now has this nice trick, using the skewer, and because you played e5, of course, rook e1, rook a1, queen a1, queen h1 check, because there isn't a check on the diagonal. So he tried that, and now he gives check. And he resigned, because after king f2, queen takes queen, you win a rook. So I thought that was quite pretty. I thought it was just a little bit of pleasure. Right, well, I'm going to stop now. My machine is not being too noisy at this exact instant, which is a wonder. So today, the 10th is a Sunday, so the 17th, the 24th, the 31st must be a Sunday, I think. In which case, I will be seeing you on June the 7th, I presume. It is that April, June. Yeah. I think I'll be seeing you on June the 7th. Have a good time in the interim. Enjoy the tournaments going on. So Sigmund and Sons finished today. Magnus won. A tough playoff with Eric Geisy. And the boys are playing playing Blitz. Probably by the time this comes out, they will have played Blitz. Okay, I'm going to go back to my thing. See that this is a recording, and otherwise there'd be a silent scream, and I'll see you.